915 homes and buildings are simply gone tonight in southern Colorado, wiped out by a single wildfire. Across the country tonight, 85 large wildfires remain uncontained and burning out of control, and crews are stretched thin. Firefighters have flown all the way from Australia and New Zealand to help us battle these flames, which tells you everything. We are at National Preparedness Level 5, the highest emergency tier there is, with more than 2.8 million acres actively on fire. Y'all, this is a big-time impactful situation stretching from the Pacific coast to the swamps of Florida, all at once. And here's the interesting thing. One western state is somehow staying quiet, but a dangerous heat wave is about to change that. So let's get right into it region by region and break down exactly where the danger is tonight. All right, we start out west in California, and believe it or not, the Golden State has been the calm one so far. Roughly 4,000 fires have burned 208,000 acres there, well below the 5-year average for late July. Compare that to a normal year with 5,300 fires and over 300,000 acres, and you see the difference. Near the Yosemite gateway town of Sonora, the small Dove fire flared up fast a few days ago, but crews knocked it down. Here's the interesting thing, though. Fire chiefs refuse to even say the word quiet because they know how fast that flips. CAL FIRE Battalion Chief David Acuna told reporters that saying quiet in a fire station is basically asking for an amazingly busy shift. Now we move north into the Pacific Northwest, and okay, this is the epicenter of the entire national fire picture. Oregon and Washington are carrying the country right now with 43 uncontained large fires and 20 incident management teams committed. Up in north central Washington, the Sinlahaken fire is throwing extreme fire behavior with wind-driven runs threatening homes on nearby hillsides. 6 large air tankers hammered that fire with retardant tonight, each one dropping between 2,000 and 4,000 gallons per run. My goodness, over on the Columbia River, a woman on a boat photographed a towering wall of smoke from the Maudrite fire. That Maudrite fire triggered a Level 3 go-now evacuation for the Apex area on the Colville Reservation in Ferry County. Fire officials warned residents they're not to wait for a knock on the door, saying this may be your only notice. Down near Prineville, Oregon, the massive Roe Creek complex has burned over 300,000 acres and taken 25 structures. That single complex has 2,200 firefighters assigned to it, the largest personnel commitment anywhere in the nation tonight. Northwest of Leavenworth, the Little Giant fire sits at 0% containment while threatening 452 structures. Amazingly, not one of those homes is burned yet, and no residents have been forced to evacuate as of tonight. Dropping down into the Great Basin, Utah is dealing with the Widemouth 2 fire south of Kanosh in Millard County. That fire pushed past 4,000 acres and put the town of Kanosh on a get-set warning, telling folks to be ready to leave fast. Residents were told to keep a go bag by the door, confirm plans with loved ones, and leave the moment it feels unsafe. Further south, the Babylon fire has grown to over 107,000 acres but is now 95% contained. Out in Nevada and Idaho, fires like New Pass and Tartar are still active in grass, brush, and scattered timber. Now to the Rocky Mountain zone, and this is where that devastating structure loss from the very top of the show is coming from. Southwest of Pueblo, Colorado, the Aspen Acres fire is responsible for the worst building toll of any wildfire in the country. It has run across more than 100,000 acres, cost nearly $88 million, and sits at 66% contained. Over in Archuleta County, the new Rio Blanco fire sparked and forced mandatory evacuations for several subdivisions near Pagosa Springs. And out on the South Dakota grasslands, the Duhamel fire north of Wall is showing flat-out extreme running behavior. Swinging east into Minnesota, several fires are burning inside the famous Boundary Waters Canoe Area wilderness near the Canadian border. Here's a bit of good news. Better mapping actually shrank the combined total there to about 64,000 acres. That is down from an earlier estimate of more than 71,000 acres, so the numbers moved in the right direction. Still, fires like Bear Trap, Thumb, and Sioux keep threatening structures and forcing evacuations across that remote lake country. Finally, down in the southeast, Georgia is battling the Camden-McCarthy Overpass fire, which is throwing extreme wind-driven fire behavior. That blaze near Woodbine forced road closures along Interstate 95, snarling one of the busiest travel corridors on the East Coast. In South Carolina, the Horse Island fire in the Francis Marion National Forest is holding at 75% containment. And across South Florida, hot and bone-dry conditions are keeping the fire threat significant even down in the subtropics. Y'all, that is fires in every corner of the map, and the year-to-date numbers tell the same story loud and clear. So far this year, over 43,000 fires have burned 4.5 million acres nationwide across the United States. That works out to 127% of the 10-year average for fires and 130% for acres. Okay, so what's coming behind all of this over the next day or two, and does it help or hurt the crews? Unfortunately, the short-term setup leans toward hurt, and it starts with dry thunderstorms rolling across the northern Rockies and Great Basin. Dry thunderstorm, that's a storm that throws lightning down to the ground, but the rain evaporates before it ever lands. So you get all the ignition from lightning strikes with almost none of the moisture, which is a recipe for new fires. That threat covers southern Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, and parts of Montana, right where fuels are already primed and ready to burn. Behind those storms, humidity is crashing into the 3 to 15% range across the Mojave and much of the Great Basin. Overnight recovery is poor too, only climbing back to 10 or 30%, so the fuels never really get a break. Temperatures are running 5 to 15 degrees above normal, hottest across the desert southwest as the summer monsoon breaks down. With everything running well above normal, look for Denver in the mid-90s and Phoenix in the low deserts baking past 105 degrees. Dallas in the southern plains stay brutally hot near 105, and northern Texas faces high fire danger from that heat. Seattle in the northwest actually cooled down close to normal, which is one small piece of relief for exhausted fire crews. But here's where it gets interesting and where the next day or two starts setting a much bigger stage out west. All that heat and bone-dry air is drifting toward California, the one state that has been sitting quietly this whole time. Fire scientists have a saying backed by brand new research: with heat comes fire. And California is walking straight into the heat. So that shallow calm we saw out west is exactly the setup for the major event we need to talk about next. All right, this is the big one, the story I will be watching hardest over the next several days across California. National Weather Service offices up and down the state are already warning of soaring temperatures arriving later in the forecast period. Forecasters at the Los Angeles and Oxnard office came right out and said conditions turned dangerously hot by Friday. Now, I want to be honest with you because fire weather forecasting has real uncertainty baked into it, especially on the timing. Weather models have wobbled on exactly how strong this heat ridge builds, and yesterday's runs looked different from today's picture. Let's take a look at this frame by frame, starting with what the European model, the Euro, is showing us at this hour. This latest Euro run builds a strong upper-level ridge of high-pressure parking directly over the western United States. Upper-level ridge that's a big dome of sinking, warming air that acts like a lid, trapping heat and drying everything out. Under that dome, daytime highs surge, overnight temperatures stay warm, and the moisture inside the vegetation drops to dangerous levels. When you dry the fuels out that fast, any spark from lightning, a mower, or a tailpipe can explode into a running fire. That is the exact mechanism a new study in the journal Science Advances just put hard numbers behind for the western states. Researchers found that heat waves and major fire activity are tightly linked, so this heat is a warning sign, not just discomfort. Okay, so let's walk through the scenarios from the best case to the worst case the way I always like to do it. In the best case, the ridge stays a touch weaker, the heat is uncomfortable but brief, and crews hold the lines they have. In the middle case, we get several dangerously hot days that dry the fuels and spark a few new fires that stay manageable. In the worst case, the ridge locks in, a dry lightning outbreak rolls through, and California jumps from quiet to explosive in hours. And remember, this is landing on a state already staring down a low snowpack and a blistering spring that primed the fuels. That combination of primed fuels and incoming heat is precisely why forecasters refuse to relax, even during a below-average summer. Here's the interesting thing: California could flip from the calmest state on this map to the biggest headline in just days. Now zoom out, because that same ridge keeps the whole West baking for days to come with no real pattern change in sight. By days 3 through 5, drier air pushes into Arizona, shoving the thunderstorm focus east into New Mexico and the southern Rockies. Humidity stays unusually low, 8 to 20% across the southwest, the inland northwest, and the northern Rocky Mountains. So even the areas getting a brief break today are looking at more heat and more fire weather danger down the road. Way out in the Pacific, Tropical Storm Fausto is passing north of Hawaii and cranking up the winds around the islands. That is a separate story, but stronger winds near any dry vegetation always deserve a close eye, even in paradise. Back on the mainland, one bright spot is heavy thunderstorm rain possible across the Dakotas and the Missouri River Valley tonight. That rain could genuinely help calm fire activity there, though it may also spark a few storms of its own along the way. So the pattern is a tale of two extremes: soaking rain in the northern plains and dangerous heat building over the west. If that Friday heatwave outlook holds strong from a day 5 into a day 4 and a day 3, this becomes a serious event. And if it does, you have my word that I will have daily updates for you as the models lock in the details. All right, y'all, let's bring it home because this is a fast-moving and developing situation from coast to coast tonight. We have 85 uncontained large fires, 915 structures already lost at Aspen Acres and help flying in from overseas. And we have that dangerous California heat wave building toward Friday that could rewrite this entire national picture in a hurry. This is exactly the kind of action-packed forecast where the situation can shift dramatically between one evening and the next. So if this heat wave keeps trending the way it is, I will be right back here with daily updates for you. Do me a favor and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn your notifications on so you never miss one. If you live anywhere out west, keep that go bag ready, know your evacuation zone, and never wait for a second warning. Stay aware of the smoke, check on your neighbors, and take every evacuation order seriously the moment it comes down. That is going to do it for tonight's National Fire Briefing, and I truly appreciate every one of you tuning in. I'll see you in the next one, and as always, stay safe out there.